Hey, fellow tennis nerds. I hope all is well. Today, I have two distinguished guests on the Tennis Nerd podcast. We have Nivedita Ubero Jerath, Dr. Nivedita, and legendary coach Rick Macci, because they have written a book together called $1 Billion Mind, a practical guide to the game of life, but also in part the game of tennis. So we're going to get into that. They both have tennis backgrounds, as you can imagine. And we'll also talk about mental health and success in life in general. But how are you today, guys?
Doing great.
No, everything's great. I started this morning at 5 o'clock, jumped off the court at 10, here with you. So we're going to have a lot of fun.
Yeah, you're always on the court. I know that by now after this a few times. Here we have the book as well. That's nice.
There you go.
So how long did it take you to write this?
How long? I would say that's a great question. I think this topic has been a passion of mine for my entire life. And I've been studying it for probably in great detail about 5 years. And then I was starting to write this book, like I would say one PowerPoint at a time. And one day I would write a line and say, and then I thought about Rick, because about 5 years ago, I brought my kids to his academy, and I would look at these great, amazing positive affirmations. Yeah, they're called Macyisms. They're all over his academy, and just so motivating. They motivated me for my work. And I came out of that experience saying, I will write a book with him. That's what I said. But 5 years later, after studying it, I, was starting to write this book and came back to kind of appreciate Rick for an award I received. And then I just told him, I said, hey, I have a book idea for you. Just kind of almost mumbled it, not really that strong. And lo and behold, about 3 weeks later, he texts me at work saying, how's the book coming along?
That's good.
But
it's just, and I would say from that day on, it's been the best journey of my life. I put all my ideas together. It was not one PowerPoint at a time. It was pages after pages, and I sent him my first draft about 3 weeks later. And since then, it's been magic.
Yeah. Well, so let me chime in. Here's how long it took me to write this book. It's been inside of me since age 22. Okay. In this book is so many quotes and snippets, like Dr. Niv said, around the academy, all these motivational quotes, but just how to look at the world from a different perspective with a different lens. So there's Rick Macci in this book on steroids about how positivity just changes the whole landscape. So it's almost like getting 100 hours of lessons with me in this book, and then it's backed up with the medical part. So it's a powerhouse, and the world's never seen, because it's a collaboration. Okay, even though, what she does is at the highest level, and same with me, there's a lot of common threads, and the reviews about the book have been like epic.
And I say Rick is the $1 billion. He is. I had to work towards it and build myself, but Rick is that. So phenomenal.
But I still got a lot of potential. I'm trying to get better. And as we talked before, if you're not getting better, you're getting worse. So that's in the book too.
Yeah, I think that's the right mindset. And then in anything you do, whether it's tennis or life or business or whatever. But let's start from the beginning. Like, how did you get to know each other? Like, I mean, Rick taught you tennis. That's as far as I know. I know a little bit more after reading the book. But can you tell the listeners as well?
Well, for me, so I grew up in Georgia and started playing tennis. My parents introduced me to the game. My mom was my coach. And I remember the day she said that she was correcting my technique. And she's like, oh, you have to do, bend your knees more, turn your shoulders, whatever. And I said, why didn't you appreciate I hit a winner? And she's like, I want you to get better. And I said, I don't like that. I want you to be positive. And she's like, no, I want you to improve. And I remember that dynamic in my life. And she told me, she's like, you need to have a strong mind. Don't be like a little earthworm. They touch you and you shake all over. And so that was where I started getting interested in having mental strength. And since then, I've really been passionate about that. But I never really had a great coach who knew tennis or knew the game as well as Rick. So when I was 16 or so, I was playing one of his students, and whatever, I was really lucky that Rick sent a letter in the mail found me. I don't even know how he found me. He found me, and I got this letter, and it had his name, and it talked about his academy. At that time, we didn't really have the internet, and so my family and I drove down to get help from him. He actually helped my twin sister's technique and got rid of the hitch probably in a couple hours. It took us like 6 years to get to, to like, oh, I'm gonna get rid of this hitch in her forehead, but he took him a couple hours. He was such a genius. And then I was training in his academy and was mesmerized by him. Mesmerized. I always had my eyes like watching what he was doing. I was like, how could he be teaching on a Sunday afternoon and it's raining? And there's a range, like 99.9% of the coaches would be home. And he was training students up and down hills. I was mesmerized. He was always focused, so nice and so intelligent, so positive. I remember everything he taught me. So just a phenomenal person. And I loved the aura. He had a very positive aura. And so as a student, I was, he just improved my game. He was just amazing all around.
Well, let me.
That's what I remember.
No, let me back the truck up. She was actually #1 in the South. Obviously, to go to Harvard, obviously you got to have the brains, but she had the game also, and her twin sister. Even though I don't quite remember everything back in the day, because there was obviously a lot of kids and so on, but it's interesting. Haven't changed a lot because I'm still teaching in the rain sometimes on a Sunday afternoon. So things haven't changed that much. But the fact that I made an impact on her life, even though she's a genius in what she does in the medical profession, we talked about this before. Tennis is just a microscopic version of, how it translates in the game of life. The hard work, the mindset, and all these things that radiate in a lesson that I give to everybody. It doesn't matter what age, what level, it's all the same. And I tell everybody, a great coach doesn't really just change strokes, they change lives. And so when Dr. Niv asked me about the book or whatever, it was just a no-brainer because doing this with her and how it's impacted so many others. I'm at this stage of the game where that's the most important thing I can do is to give back. In the book, I think we're going to reach millions.
Yeah, I just to say, I just wanted to add one thing. I'll never forget why, when I came back and I had won this award from Orlando about women in power. So I wanted to recognize Rick because I always remember the day he told me that, like, just, kind of helped guide my future. He said, like, don't spend all your time going for a pro. I mean, you're not going to be, and it sounds like, oh, this is negative, but it's true. Like, you're going to waste your time trying to go for top 5 in the world because that's not where you are. And it's true. That is true. And if it weren't for those words, those golden words in my life that pivoted my career, I could have still been wasting my time. I immediately said, okay, I'm not going to really invest every single minute in this. I'm going to go ahead and pursue science and medicine and really be an expert in that field. So I love that part about it. It's just so sincere and authentic, where you can get any other coach and they're just not that way. They can say anything you want. You don't get that honesty, and I love that.
Because that's interesting. Because if they don't move their feet after a couple weeks, I say, I can show you how to hit a golf ball also. So, golf could be in the oven if you're not going to move your feet, but she can move around the court. So I think she made the right decision because she's the leader in the clubhouse and the profession that she does.
Yeah, but that's why I always appreciated you.
No, thank you.
Coach. It really makes a big difference.
Yeah, and it's all about that positive mindset. I mean, Ricky brings it. I've gotten to know him through the podcasts, and he always has that positive, energetic mindset of 1% improvement, improving every day, so you don't fall back. And it's so important in life in general. But in the book, you also talk a lot about how kind of health benefits can come out of this kind of positive thinking. Not just only on the tennis court, but also in life. Can you talk a bit more about how a positive mindset can influence your life in a good way?
Absolutely. That's a perfect question for me. So this book was designed not only for, tennis players and tennis students, but also for my patients. And it's produced quite a big impact on my patients. They read the book and they come back, they say, Dr. Jerath, your book has changed my life. Now I'm not in that thinking loops. So there's a chapter on thinking loops, and some of my patients have become more aware of the patterns where they think that they're going to, die or have this horrendous disease, or, the worst is coming. They'll go on Google and start searching every single possibility of diseases that could be causing their symptoms. And then they'll come and ask me. They can't get sleep. They can't live their life. And really, it's just a bad pattern. Every day they wake up obsessing about their medical condition, when in reality there's really nothing wrong. So they come in to see me. I'm like, oh, you can still walk. You're not in a wheelchair. Will it take care of these things? You're not as severe as you think you are. And then if they don't change their thought process, they can continue that thinking. I have a lot of patients like that. And so unless they are aware that their mind is going into that negativity, and they have to get themselves out of it, stop it, and then get into a more positive thinking pattern, then they can start living their life. So it's a really important book because it's really trying to understand the way our minds work. We have billions of neurons, billions, and a multitude of ways of thinking. And so it's very hard to understand those thought processes. But this book helps. That's the real fundamental, benefit of this book, is to understand how our minds work.
No, it's very interesting because the book isn't really about forehands, backhands, serves, biomechanic, or footwork, but the book will definitely improve all that. It's not even really for tennis players. It's for the world, because it's all perspective and how you look at things. And if you break down a tennis match, as you know, when you break it down, the mental part, everybody will tell you that's the most important. Okay. Even if the guy has a better forehand, backhand, and serve, you lose 2-2, and you're going, how did that happen? Because the guy runs and fights and sweats, but he has the ability to forget. He's changed his perspective of how he handles pressure. And that's what separates these guys that win at the highest level, that wins Grand Slams. They're all about the competition. And I work with people. People might think, because of my collaboration with Dr. Brian Gordon, it's all more about biomechanics or the motivation and the positivity. I work with so much more on the mental part with all the kids, how to handle problems. Because as you know, you got 20 seconds to flip it in your mind like it happened 20 years ago. And having the ability to remember, to forget, that's a big skill. And I can't get into the whole thing in the podcast, but there's all these things that if you listen to, you can change your perspective. You get into a habit. Everything in life is a habit, but you got to be willing to change and look at it differently. And the final thing is, doesn't matter, tennis, football, baseball, business, whatever. The best of all the rest, they're the most positive creatures that ever walked the face of the earth. They have one common thread, because you can't be super negative and be a champion at anything unless something was just like gifted to you, especially in the game of tennis. A lot of these people don't even want to be around the negativity. You know what I'm saying? So they just train their mind that way. And there's all kinds of roadmaps and blueprints in the book that can help people with that.
Yeah, and you could argue that we're in a kind of a mental health crisis. I mean, mental health is something that's talked about everywhere, which is good in a way, right? But there's a lot of negativity on social media, internet overall. So are there any few steps that you can give, any tips that people could use here to deal with that, like to turn that around, that negativity? They might feel anxiety from reading newspapers and stuff like that.
Absolutely. So just to recap, we're talking about thinking loops and then talking about how positivity is really important. But going back to like the health issues where our patients are kind of obsessed, at least mine are obsessed with negative thoughts or doom and gloom that they're not going to live. And now we've got social media to add to the ripple of possible negativity. Now we've got our thinking loops are into comparison, and somebody else is doing something or winning, and now we're not doing the same. And so then we get into this depression. Almost what we describe is kind of a mental paralysis. Your mind starts thinking, okay, I'm not that great, and now you start not doing anything. I think Rick is so beyond that when you work with him. He's just saying like, what? And I can understand when you're in such a high level of positivity, it's very hard to understand how people just don't do anything. They're just kind of stuck in their own thoughts and depression. But with that crisis, some of the tips that we talk about in the book include the most important thing is awareness. And we use that a lot. So once you start becoming aware of those patterns, we start saying, look, when when I start opening up Facebook and I see someone's profile and I start thinking about that person, then I start thinking these negative thoughts, like a domino effect. And I recommend not only just awareness, but also writing it down in a journal. There's hundreds of different, exercises here, including say 10 positive things about yourself, or say 10, be grateful when you get up in the morning, all these things that help you. But when the most important thing that actually helped me personally was that thinking loop. I started watching myself, I would consistently see how I would fall into a trap every day. And then I'd write it down. I would consider, why would I do this? But I would text or message somebody that A, would never respond to me, B, someone who lied. And then what happens after that is that I get so upset about it. I'm not productive. And I'm fuming and fretting. So then how I fixed it was after, this is years, but finally I said, look, if I do that, I'm not going to be able to do my work. And so I stopped that process, very aware of it. So thinking loops and being able to document it and watching how your brain patterns work, I think are crucial. And if Facebook or if it's Twitter, if somebody's bothering you or something, like trying to distance yourself from that stuff. I don't know if you've had experience with it, or I don't know.
Oh yeah, everybody has. Listen, but no, I could give thousands of tips or pointers, but the first thing you got to want to do is try to change. Okay, instead of getting on that merry-go-round and you just like are negative and you look at things differently. And going back to like the tennis part, I tell this to the kids all the time. If I had a 12-year-old and he hits a ball into the net, when he's playing an 8-year-old, he's going to respond a certain way. But if he hit the ball, that 12-year-old, into the net and he was hitting with Alcaraz, he's going to respond a different way. And I said, but it still went in the net, and that's the way it is what it is. But we're letting something else control us. And so it starts on perspective of how you're going to look at this stuff. Okay. Because people respond differently to everything. And that's when they build up stress. And then they kind of become that creature. If you keep making excuses, you get better at making excuses. People all the time, they understand what they eat. Most people, they eat whatever they want, but what they hear and what goes into their brain, okay, they should change all that. You want to be around positive people and motivating people. You want to be around that, what you put into your head. You see what I'm saying? But then you got to want to apply it. And as you go down the yellow brick road of life, okay, you're going to have so many choices every day and influences, and maybe one word or one thing that you heard can change everything, because some people are still mad about something 20 years later, the same thing, and if you complain, you get better at complaining. And some people, maybe because of environment or their family dynamic, some of this stuff can kind of evolve, and it can be for better or worse. Everybody can change, if you want to. And there's all kinds of stuff in the book about that, but you got to want to do it first. It's mind control. And what I try to tell the kids, listen, if you're not going to listen to me, which most of them do, they hear me, but they don't listen. Okay. I said, watch Federer, Nadal, Djokovic, watch these players at the top, how they respond to failure. Imitate that, like Iga did of Rafa. Imitate that. Imitate and become that. Off the court, that's something different, but that will actually help you off the court too, how you handle problems. We could both go to a stoplight and the light turns green and you're behind a person. And some people will wait a few seconds before they do something. Other people will be on the horn. Some people might get out of their car if the guy's texting. How you respond to stuff, and you become that, And the best way to handle things be calm, take a deep breath. People always tell you, get a good night's sleep, you feel different. It's the hardest thing to do because we have an emotion go through our body and we respond. And a lot of times it's of anger or frustration instead of just waiting and handling things with a smile and a different approach. And that's what you got to do on a tennis court. It's the exact same thing. And that's why you see the success of Alcaraz, how he handles pressure. We talked about it. He's a Broadway performer with a racket in his hand. He can flip pressure in his mind.
And I like the concept that you actually said that people have to desire. It really has to come from within. If you're happy with status quo and you just want to be average, you're not going to get to the next level of life. I mean,
Yeah.
you have to be aware. I would see so many different things. I would see how, one day someone's, even my own mind, is happy, then sad, then, just like some little thing bothers me. And it's like all of a sudden I get into some sort of craziness. And, another technique that I thought about was meditation. I saw that as complicated as you think. But if you just like, it's really about self-reflection and watching those thoughts. And again, awareness, like if you get up in the morning and you say, okay, what thought is coming in, and recognizing those are not real. You just all of a sudden say, this thoughts of, and I know Rick probably doesn't have them, but like personal, like negativity. And I know you've trained your mind to be positive, but people, the rest of the world, they have to, self-defeating thoughts or critical thoughts or negative thoughts or misinterpreting a situation or taking, lack of response as personal. All these things, we start going down that path of negativity. And I can tell you, I even say that in the book, how I get a phone call from someone criticizing what I'm doing. And then all of a sudden you're just like, you have to kind of be able to recognize it and stop. And so whether it's meditation or journaling, but the awareness is the most important.
Yeah, I think that's great point. Like awareness of how you are on a tennis court, but also how you are in daily life, how you deal with like difficult situations, challenges that pop up. And I would say also maybe like building like positive habits, whether it's exercise, eating properly, or at least you're making your bed first thing in the morning or something like that. Just start your day in a good way. Do you have any other ideas of like positive habits that can influence people's thinking and create a kind of a better balance in their life?
Absolutely. I think number one, you have to get into a routine. And I tell people, if you get into a routine, you'll become a machine, but it has to be a positive routine. If you want to do this, and once you find your identity, okay, then if you don't stick to it, it's like going to the gym or whatever. If you don't stick to it, you're so far down the road, you almost feel guilty if you don't do it. So you got to get into a routine and have structure. And when you say, well, I don't have time, a winner makes time. Get up earlier. You got to get into a routine, okay, about all this stuff. And that it starts with discipline. But people, if you're all over the map, your thoughts will always be all over the map. Okay?
But I mean, I was just thinking like every night what I do, and it's probably since I've met Rick and worked on this book together, one is to be grateful every night. So I write in my journal, I'm grateful for these things. That really does help control your mind, because then you start thinking of how, instead of thinking what you don't have, you start thinking what you have.
Yeah.
Rick, I honestly tell you now how grateful he is almost every day. It's just built into his vocabulary. He says, thank you.
Yeah, you appreciate what you have, what you don't have, especially
Yeah.
when, things aren't going your way. Just always remember that. And that's kind of been with me my whole life. And you don't just like start complaining and, looking at things through a different lens. Appreciate what you have, because in a blink of an eye, things could change and it could be brutal.
Right. So the habit is every night I know I think Rick has really influenced me, but I will go into my phone and go into the people that really helped me that day. I'm really grateful that you did this for me. And we could look at it the other way, that the person really may not have executed the way we wanted. Well, you can always criticize, but I'll say, thank you for doing this. Thank you for, showing up. And that really helps mind control, because then you don't look at the negativity. And the second thing that I always do, and I love this exercise, is to go and say, my 10 strengths are, and I'll do that like once a week, because that gives you confidence. It gives you, mental control, and also tells you what you're doing well in. So those two things kind of makes you feel unique and powerful as a person. Absolutely. And I put that in my journal.
No, we talked about this before.
Yeah.
And this is just kind of, how I'm put together, and it's all in the book. You asked me, or many people have asked me, who's my favorite student of all time? They think it's Venus, Serena, Capriati, Roddick, Moschina, Pierce, Kenin, whoever. Okay. And I mean this, it's who's ever on the other side of the net, that hour, that minute, that second. I think I even told you that when we interviewed me. And that's how I feel. And if that's how you feel, you become that. If you train yourself, the students will feel that, and you can extract greatness. That's number one. Number two, I have people write it down, put it in their journal, look at this every day. Remember what I said? You're kind of aware of what you put in your mouth. Why aren't you aware of what you're putting in your mind? So when you look at these words, you motivate yourself instead of getting it from Rick Macci or whoever. Empower yourself, because let's face it. Djokovic is where he's at. It's a package, as you know, but this is so unique. And I'm sure when he retires, he's going to unveil so many secrets. It's almost like unhuman-like, how his mind is so different than anybody who's held a stick.
Yeah, and it's so important to be able to turn negative thoughts around. And you talk a lot about in the book, like a mental diet, like your mental diet, which you mentioned here was like the food you put in yourself, that's your food diet, but then you also have a mental diet. Can you explain a bit more about the mental diet and how to tackle that?
I love it. I can start. Yeah. So I love it because that is the whole foundation of the
That
book.
is.
Yeah. It's like all the chapters are mental
and it's delicious. And it's delicious.
You were talking about all the techniques and that, daily habits, they have that in here. So if you want to see a more complete list, that's there. But our mental diet is what we put into our mind. And I think that it's very important, especially in life or in tennis, to have the appropriate diet. And I like a lot of the concepts we talk about, like positive affirmations, confidence and discipline. All those things are really important concepts for everybody, especially tennis players, to have in their diet. But I think one of the most important I wanted to highlight from the book was positive associations. I think that is one of the most important. And I'm not sure, how others believe, but if you want to be one of the best tennis players in the world, or even best in anything, having someone that's a good association that's not only just positive but also knows what they're doing is really important. I speak from experience, especially in tennis. I think having somebody who has been there, who's experienced, and Rick, like having you in my life, like it's really important. You can correct anybody's technique in a heartbeat, and knowing that and having someone like that in your portfolio in tennis is so important. Because if you don't, say for instance, you have the local coach down the street, which I have, in Augusta, Georgia, the local coach, there you go, you start developing techniques, right? And instead of your tennis strokes becoming weapons, they become liabilities, because now you have the wrong technique. Your backhand is always going in the net and always really explaining, and you're like, just, it's very, very hard. So I think positive associations is one of the most important things for tennis players, especially early on, to develop the right technique. And I always wish I'd met Rick earlier, because I probably would have had an easier time with my technical skills, rather than getting the wrong technique and then erasing it and then having to fix it. And even the positivity. If coaches don't bring that out, then even the slightest, but say for instance, I don't know if you've seen this, like, oh, your opponent's serve is better than yours, good luck. Like, does coaches say that? I'm sure they've done that before. Then now your mental, when you're getting on the court, you're already like mentally defeated. Tennis is so mental. If you think about mental strength, you think of tennis. You can't win a match without mental strength. So yeah, so I think that having the right association around you is really important.
Yeah, just deviating away from tennis, but in the game of life. Like if I ask people a question like, what's your favorite day? Okay, let me ask you, what's your favorite day? Like
my favorite day,
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Besides that, you should say 2 day. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. If you ask that to people, okay, no one is going to say Monday. Because like, oh, it's Monday. A lot of people won't say that. They're going to say Friday or the weekend or whatever. The correct answer is every day. And if you had something happen to you, it would be every day that you would appreciate. So that is the ultimate answer that you're going to get, okay, with the people at the highest level. They're not going to say Wednesday because it's the middle of the week, or they're not going. Everybody's going to say Monday's the toughest day. So you got to make Monday your best day. And I flipped it. It's almost the exact opposite long ago in my mind. And Monday, because a lot of people are dragged, it has nothing to do with tennis. So that's number one. It's all perspective of how you're looking at it. But we get caught up on that merry-go-round that's been passed down through the years. We're around the wrong people a lot of times. And I'm not saying it's all how you can hear them, but you don't need to listen. And you get caught up in a routine. I'm supposed to do this. I'm supposed to do that. Why are you happier more on your birthday? You should be, maybe a little happier because there's more of a celebration, but every day should be happy. Every day should be awesome. Okay. It doesn't matter if it's raining, we're still training. Okay. It doesn't matter. Okay. It's all perspective. Okay. I have the kids work even harder when it's colder or it's hotter. Okay. You got to feel uncomfortable to get comfortable, and sometimes if I'm given a lesson, we'll go back to the tennis, some kid's going to double fault some kids serving and they're hitting a second serve. I say, you've been serving amazing. I hope you don't double fault. Okay. And the parent, like Richard Williams, would go, I love Rick. Where the other parents go, wait a minute, that's not right. They got a lot to learn. That's the real world. You got to get uncomfortable to get comfortable. So it's all perspective. And a lot of times it's the exact opposite. You know what I mean? It's the exact opposite. When people read the book, there's going to be so many gold nuggets that they can apply to the game of life.
Yeah, I was going to say every day, actually. So I would ace that test. But I'm a little bit like you, Rick. So maybe that helps,
That's
So,
good.
I say every day needs to be good. I think that's, and if it's not in your life, I mean, there's maybe a sign that you should change something, or you need to do some amends. If it's just in your mental state, or maybe it's in your life in general, right? So it could be that. So if you're on a tennis court and things are going against you, or maybe in life, you can choose there. But what should you do, like when the negative thoughts start piling up and you're going down 5-0 or 4-1, or something is going not your way?
Yeah, I like that question. You can go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, first off, let's start with the tennis part first. It's not over until you shake. And, a lot of times people, they let the situation control them instead of them controlling the situation. Okay. And then I would come up with analogies. Alcaraz lost the first set 6-1 at Wimbledon, and now he has the trophy, and it looks like, whoa, a lot of people are thinking that match might be over. Okay. And Medvedev was up 2-0 against Sinner. Whoa, Sinner has the trophy. And you got to get this across the kids, because when they get down, they think it's the end of the world. And you got to give those analogies that it's never over till you shake hands, and this is so important, as you know, because tennis requires so much mental strength. It's like golf and boxing. It's a very different sport because it's not a team dynamic. You got to be able to take a punch. And I always tell people, why do you feel different when you play doubles? When you play doubles and you miss a shot, like you go up and hug your opponent, you give a high five, everybody forgets what just happened. Where in singles, it's a different feeling that you have. And you got to have the ability to let it go. You know what I mean? And that's the hardest thing to do. Okay. And that's what greatness is mastered. Because as well as I do, there's better athletes out there on the tour through the test of time that they don't have any Grand Slams, but they were the best athletes on the tour. And it's a game of inches from one ear to another, just like the game of life. And it's mind control. And you got to have the ability to flip it. But that's a big thing when you're playing like tennis, or now for the game of life, how you respond to it if it's a bad day outside, or it's cold, or whatever. I appreciate every day. Okay. It's just a little different, but nothing has changed. What has changed? What has changed if you're down 5-0? Nothing has changed. You still had a long way to go. But if you look at it, it's over. It's probably over. You see, greatness doesn't look at that. A tennis match can change like that. You can't let other things make you happy or sad. It can help you a little bit, But when you become mentally strong and you can control things yourself, listen, everybody needs a helping hand, but it's getting into a routine, it's training yourself that way. And I actually like problems. Okay. I like problems because I know that's going to create another opportunity for something better. Okay. And I kind of like failure. Okay. Because you'll try harder. Okay. I don't want people, I've told Niv this, I don't want people to come up and say, you're the best. I mean, they can say it once in a while, you're the best or you're that. I like constructive criticism, not every day, because if you're not getting better, you're getting worse. Okay. And it's all mindset on how you absorb this stuff. But go ahead and chime in.
I wanted to echo that sentiment, because what I think is that when we're down 4-0 or 5-0 in a match, the one thing we have to be very careful about, and I like what you're saying, is that we cannot let other things outside our mind be in control. We can't let the score be in control. We can't let our opponent be in control. We can't let the umpire be in control. We can't let the bad court surface or the bad balls be in control. We have to be in control. Our mind, and that's why this book is so precious, is because we have to be in control of our own mind and our own thoughts so we can navigate situations like that. We don't let the score bother us. We don't let how many times have you've played and there's like music outside, or there's, people taking photography and people talking. We cannot let the outside world dictate our life. And that's not only in the tennis court, but outside the tennis court. We can't let, our family member who's critical control our life and what we're doing, and I've even seen how you've done this podcast, right? This is a great idea. You've probably, whatever you've done, you probably had obstacles along the way. You've had been able to control your mind and get this done. Otherwise, it would have never happened, right? And speaking of being down, I always marvel at Coco Gauff's match in U.S. Open when she turned around the match because Justin Bieber was in the crowd. Now, think about this. This is like the epitome of our book. She was so motivated because there's a rock star in the crowd that she won. And that was part of it. There was like a lot of media behind that. But what I think about, and our book really helps us with mind control, is that if she can think like that all the time, or if we figure out what really motivates us, if we have like, all it takes is a matter of just a little bit of knowledge. One thing, like Rick said, can change the outcome. So now she's like, she has to perform because somebody's watching. And so for her, that works. For other people, it might be something else. It might be their parents have to be there, or they want, a little bit of motivation from their best friend or something like that. But our minds, that's what this book is about, really understanding what motivates us and what can get us out of those type of things.
One more thing about the tennis part, you have to be all about one thing. Forget 5-0 or forget better player, worse player, single, double. Okay. You got to be all about the competition. If you love the battle, if you love the competition, and a lot of kids say, well, I love it more when I'm winning. I've never heard anybody say I love it least. It's always that way, but it's wrong. It's all about the competition. Okay. You got to have a thirst for competition like no other. And I could go through, Serena was she was a pit bull. Her thirst for competition, all of them were, all these people that, that I've coached. But when you're all about the competition, anybody, anytime, anywhere, and nothing else is controlling that, you handle pressure better. That's when you're going to get this ideal performance state. I'm really intense. I want to win, obviously, but I'm calm because I'm all about the competition. And it's hard to get away from that. I'm down 5-0. I'm serving bad. I was playing good yesterday, okay, but not today. What does yesterday have to do with today? I get into all this with a lot of the kids and the parents, and that's a whole nother thing to talk about. But if anybody listening to this that plays tennis, just love the competition. And the kids will say, I love it more when I'm winning. No, they're letting that control them. Listen, you only have control over one thing, attitude. Okay. And this book is so much about attitude and mindset and this is the really the bottom line thing when you ask about a tip. That's why I knew Roddick. I didn't know he was going to win the US Open at 20 or 19 years old. One of the most brutal competitors. And he actually overachieved. He wasn't Federer or Djokovic. He wasn't at that level, but he was so competitive. He never had any bad losses. And I can back the truck up to Sharapova. She was the mentally strongest 11-year-old I ever had. She was in a bubble. Nothing bothered her. Now, that doesn't mean you're going to be amazing, okay? But whatever you do, it's going to help you in the game of life because she could just, boom. She was all about that. So as a tennis player, any coach listening to this, the number one thing they should be able to teach a player is always become better competitor. Run for every ball, no excuses. I love to play. Every point, you're right there. And that takes practice and discipline. And unfortunately, people are all over the map. But if you want to do it, it's a choice and anybody can do it.
And we all have different sources of motivation. I thought it was interesting you brought up the Coco Golf Justin Timberlake example because
Justin Bieber.
Justin Bieber was either or. But it's interesting
You're in
how
the neighborhood. You got Justin right. You're in the neighborhood.
famous Justin. So everybody finds their motivation from some source, right? So you, based on your personality, I guess you can elaborate maybe on this. But like for example, Djokovic, he needs some kind of forces against him. He almost likes the crowd to boo against him because he finds motivation in proving them wrong or just showing that he's better than the opponent or them or whatever. While some players are more again of internal motivation. How do you find your motivation and how do you kind of channel that to improve your life or your game or something?
Absolutely. And that's where this book comes in. It's everybody is so unique, whether it's in tennis or in life. So, for example, if I were playing and Justin Bieber were there, I don't know if I would perform like that. I would be like, a little bit nervous, and I would need a motivation differently. Like when someone tells me that when I was playing, someone said that this little kid can beat you, I would make sure I win, and I was quietly destroy them. But so everybody has their own way. I think it's really a lot of it is self-reflection. And that's the key. It's that awareness. What is it that makes somebody motivated is how they look inside themselves and they know themselves well. And a lot of times we don't sit quietly to understand and know us. I know Rick is really an expert at knowing himself. He knows himself inside and out. Like he'll know, doesn't want to travel with the pros. He used to stay here with his academy. And for me, like it took me a long time to know who I really was. And so I think sitting down quietly, that's where meditation, self-reflection, writing in your journal, those things are crucial to understand what motivates you. Like, for example, for Coco Gauff, now that she was motivated by Justin Bieber, having that same motivation, perhaps, in future, opens will help her maybe, win. It may be something that's really important for her mindset. And, there's some people I found out, in my personal life, like I have a, family member motivated by food, so it takes that, I don't eat for hours. I don't have to eat for 8 hours. I don't care. But some of them love food and they need that to motivate them and get them going. Some people are motivated by, all kinds of things. Our minds are so wide and varied, but some can, be like trophies, art, who knows what it is that really motivates you. Some people like shopping. So this is really important. Some people love money. So whatever it is, to focus on ourselves and understand that. And think we don't spend enough quiet time with ourselves. We're always distracted. Or we're thinking about thoughts that somebody else has implanted, like Rick was saying, earlier, like in school, we'll say, oh, it's a weekend. Now it's time to have fun, right? Like your teachers say that. And that's like inbred in us. Or a parent that says something about our abilities. Oh, you're not strong in that. You're not gifted in that. Now that's what we believe. So this is where we look in deep in ourselves and try to correct all of those thoughts. And this book is a game changer.
Yeah, I think, you mentioned it, Rick, and I think it's a very, very good lesson for people in general, like, especially in today's society when everybody's distracted, as you also said, that it's like being present. You're present with your students, being present with your employees, being present with your, people who are coming to see you. So it's like, that's very important. And that's how you find awareness, but are there any tricks you can to improve your presence? Put away your phone, I guess, is a very good trick. But do you have any other ideas? Like, how can you be more present in the moment in today's crazy world?
You mean on the tennis court with students, or what?
Yeah, both,
No,
like in life in general. Yeah.
no. Well, I think first off, you should have goals and you should be realistic and you should write these down. But, I go by the motto like every day you should look in the mirror and ask yourself, did I get better today? And not lie, okay? And be honest with yourself. And I know that sounds crazy, but greatness talks to themselves a lot, okay? Sometimes greatness doesn't even want anybody else to tell them anything. And that can actually make your mind stronger. Like Rune, like I said, he's changing coaches like socks, but the answer to his thing's in the mirror. That's his best coach. So at the end of the day, um, you're not getting better, you're getting worse. I think the number one thing that you should always try to do is write stuff down. You look at it, or you look in the mirror and ask yourself that question. Did I get better today? And if you didn't, that's okay. But you need, like Niv said, you got to have that talk with yourself. And people don't do that because they like to do things where they can feel it or maybe see it or sweat. That's why people don't like to meditate, or they don't like to do yoga. They don't like to do things. They don't like any mental training. And this Djokovic guy, when it's all said and done, he's going to come out with a whole smorgasbord. People are going to go, whoa, this is a different cat the world's never seen, or different goat, I should say, not a cat. So, but this is the biggest thing that they don't have discipline, they don't have structure. But when you have that talk with yourself, and Niv brought it up, I get to the park every day at 5 and open up. And a lot of times, unless I have a Zoom with someone from Belarus or Switzerland or whatever, I have an hour in my office, which is my car. Okay. And it's downtime that I can just lock in mentally. And I like that tranquility, just to start today, bang. Okay. And even when I start to go to the courts, there'll be garbage. I always pick it up instead of saying, well, that's not my job. Or there's tennis balls all over the place. Instead of saying all the coaches left the balls out there, I look forward to helping out, and when you have that gratitude and appreciation, I think it just helps you in all facets of your life.
And you're talking about awareness. I've seen Rick's focus is more than anybody can imagine. He's so focused. We even played like a casual round of golf. He's so focused on my swing. And like the thing is, like, it's just focus. The focus is incredible. When you're focused, then you can be more aware of everything and you're not distracted by everything else.
That doesn't start saying focus.
No.
You gotta get into a routine, find your identity. Find your identity of what you want to do.
Absolutely.
And if you can't, and that's what I chose to do, you know what I mean? And here I am, so I'm just saying it's work for me, but the most important thing, I get to share that. I get to share that with that person calling on the phone. Okay. I get to share that with the whole world and influence so many people. Because when people come back, they don't tell me about their forehand or their backhand or their serve. Some might, but it's how I've got them to think different and work harder. Okay. And look at life through a different lens. But I wasn't trying to do that. And to me, that's probably my best contribution. And now they pass that down to their kids. And I think we talked about that with Christian Ruud and Casper, because I coach Christian, who was Norway's finest, but he got unseated by his son. But I'm sure he's okay with that. Winners find a way and losers make excuses. And that stuck with Christian, in 1989. Okay. And that wiring is a big part of his son that he put into him at age 4. Now, it's one thing to hear it. It's another thing to listen, and that's a big thing that parents, have to get into their kids. So I love the question, but that would be my answer.
But yeah, and we were talking about awareness in the moment and being focused, but you can't be focused if you're not doing something you love. Look at you. I mean, this podcast, you're so focused and you enjoy what you're doing. And especially like you love to teach, you love to help take care of patients. And how do you get that motivation? That's another process in the brain. It's not easy, but also figuring out why and what you love.
And then once you find your identity,
right,
then you just you build. And before you know it, you look back and go, whoa, You just build, you keep bettering your best. You're never satisfied. You know what I mean? And like Djokovic says, he goes, I got to get a lot better. Like Alcaraz, after Wimbledon, now what? He goes, I got to get a lot better. And so when I say that to the kids, someone that has that much money and that much fame and all the records and the greatest of all time, and his quote is, I got to get a lot better. Not better, a lot better. Whoa, that puts everything in perspective for every kid who thinks they put in a hard day's work, or they think they are working hard. They don't know what hard work is. They have no idea. So at the end of the day, when a coach, listen to this, can use those people as examples, it's not going to happen overnight, but one little piece at a time, before you know it, you just have a lot of blocks and you have something special.
Yeah, and I think you're 100% right. Like also the part about embracing discomfort. Like these guys know how to embrace discomfort every day, get out of the comfort zone. You don't learn anything there. You need to kind of get out of that and be uncomfortable, as you well put. How important, as you mentioned, parents, you mentioned these stars on the tennis court. How important is positive role models? Like how can you find positive role models to cling on to build better habits around your mindset and so on?
You want to go first?
Yeah. So we were talking about positive associations, right? So in order to get the right, guidance in life. So the most important thing, I think, one is to find the right coach. But your question is more of how do you find it? How, right? And I think that is a challenge because you have to find the right person. And some of the things I do, and especially with, I've learned even with my relationship connection with Rick, is I always say, is that person more positive than me? Rick is for sure. Is he like more healthy? Like is he healthier than I am? Oh yeah, for sure. He has like you could just tell. He's such a great role model because I think he takes like 60 or 70 vitamins. It's incredible. If you see his kitchen, it's amazing. Does he eat more healthfully than I do? Yes, because he's eating the same thing every day for 30 years, and I still have variety and stuff like that. But it's impressive how his nutrition and health are so important. And so when and then does he respond to problems better than I do? Of course, he's so positive and locked in, and every morning always comes in with full of positive energy. So you've got so many great qualities in him, and is so much more knowledge. And then you realize that's a great connection because he's got things that are better, things that I can look up to, things that I can learn from. And so that's how you build role models or connections or mentors or coaches when you can look up to them. Unfortunately, if there are people you can't look up to, they're, obviously slacking, or they say, don't worry, let's go out, and they're like, not that pizza is bad, but they're late eating pizza and they're drinking alcohol and they're partying. Those may not be the right role models if you want to be like, professional in tennis or, do something in this world where you're changing the world. And you have to get your mind focused and you have to be on top of your game. And so finding someone who's better than you in these certain qualities can really be a game changer.
Well, first, let me chime. First, she's a world-class neurosurgeon. She sounds like my publicist, but she's not. She's actually a doctor. She's a neurologist. So no, neurologist. So at the end of the day, you can go to YouTube, and there's so many motivational speakers, and people should do that on a regular basis. That's the easiest way, instead of maybe finding someone, that you have to go meet someone. You can go on YouTube and watch speeches and watch people give motivation. I think every day, even I tell the kids this, even for 2 minutes, you eat breakfast, you can do this. You should be part of your game plan, because people need that. And then you start to do it. Okay. And I give this in all my speeches. You kind of get into that routine, and every day, then eventually it's like you look forward to it. And then you start talking like that. And then you become like that. And that's why every day at 10 o'clock, I give a group speech to all the kids and parents. And it's more about life. Okay. A lot of times it's about tennis, but it's more about life. And I make them record it. And the parents, it's crazy. You have no idea. It's like, they're just like, whoa. And because that's kind of my calling. It's more of a life coach. So the bottom line is it's out there, but how many people, I tell them all the time, how many of you guys are going to do that tomorrow? Go on YouTube, okay, and let's go watch just 3 minutes of Tony Robbins or my good friend David Meltzer. And a few of them will kind of put up their hands. And I said, well, how many of you guys will do it if I give you $1,000? It's like, all right, you know? So like everybody raises 2 hands. And I said, well, you got it backwards, because if you listen to them every day, okay, or me every day, in the future, you're going to make a lot more than $1,000. So you got it backwards. See, they'll do it if you make them do it. But when you do things with no agenda and it comes from your heart, okay, that's a whole different thing. And some kids, no matter what I say, and I know it's family and I know it's environmental, some kids I can say at one time and they'll do whatever. Okay. They'll do whatever. And you can't, but I actually like the ones that don't do it. I like the ones that don't listen, because as a coach, I like to challenge. You know what I mean? I mean, not for years on years. I mean, after a while, it's like, whoa, if I knock on the door, I hope they answer eventually. But I like the ones that are a challenge, because that gives me, as a coach, a teacher, a role model, the greatest satisfaction.
You know, I love that, Rick. You know, one of the things that I have to echo there is that there's no end to YouTube videos. And that saved my life. That saved my, because I was so alone. I was so positive, and sometimes people like to gossip or be negative or critical, and I couldn't really vibe or connect. And in order to keep myself sane, I would just go on these videos, and I would go to all these self-help coaches. You know, I can name a dozen of them that I loved, and they changed my life, my way of thinking. And that's how this book kind of came about. I mean, I started thinking about me and what I really liked. It was very, very hard to do. But there's probably not a day that goes by without, you know, of course I have Rick and I have this positivity all the time, but I also listen to those every day. There's not even, you know, at least half an hour.
And I want everybody to understand, everybody has the same problems.
Yeah.
Some people solve problems, other people make problems. Everybody has the same problems. Some maybe a little bit more. It's how you respond to it. I mean, there's 100 things that happen to all of us right here every day. Okay, because it's not like perfect. Okay, you make it perfect. How you respond to it. You know what I'm saying? And this is like mind control, but it takes discipline. But you got to be willing to change, and then you got to kind of follow the blueprint. That's what I love about the book. Okay, there's a notebook. It's like a journal. You can go back to it. People are gonna read it over and over again. And when people are doing the reviews and saying how it changed their life, it's like, whoa. I mean, that's heavy duty. And the key is you got to do it every day. It's like a routine. People eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner most of the time, except me. I don't always eat that much, and you become that if you want that. If not, keep complaining, and you'll get better at complaining. All right. You'll be the leader in the clubhouse at that. But if that's what they want to do. But if they want to be the best they can be in the game of life, because we're only here for a short period of time, you got to look at it and appreciate every day. Appreciate what you have instead of what you don't have.
Yeah, that's great. So where do you get the book? Amazon, I got it from. But where else can you get it in bookshops, or should you go to Amazon?
Yeah, right now Amazon. But I believe there are other bookstores that are selling it out there. And we're also doing an audio version, should be coming out in a few days. So we're excited about that one.
Well, there's a condensed version just for kids.
Just for kids.
Just for kids too.
Yeah, for younger kids.
Yeah.
It's very an easier read. So
that's great. Like, so are you doing the voice in the audio version, or do you have a voice actor to do it?
I would love to do the voice. No, we had got an actor. Just someone else who would help us. Yeah.
Yeah.
She had to keep the consistency and the energy.
And one thing about the book, if anybody gets it, if they ever have any questions, they can email me at info@rickmacci.com. Okay, and I'll get back to them in 24 hours and give them the best shot of adrenaline and try to answer the question.
Yeah, you're always a shot of adrenaline, Rick. That's true. You're bringing the energy every day. I don't know how you do it, but so when you worked on the book, like, did you figure out something that you didn't think of before, like that we're just working on the book, that like some aha moments that you could use with your clients, you know, whether it's like patients or tennis students?
Oh wow. So yeah, I can tell you a lot of things.
A lot.
I think one of the things that I loved about the book was really researching about, of course, I loved, you know, Rick's quotes. Like somehow the mind is like a nuclear weapon. I love those things. Like it is. It's so powerful, right? Every thought we have is so powerful. That's how we are where we are. You know, that's how this podcast came. That's how Rick has just built up just a world famous academy. And I have, you know, my own clinics because of our thoughts. So we recognize that's powerful. But what I've really used, like on a day-to-day basis at a very high level, I talked about Djokovic. He wrote a book on how to eat, and I really like that book because he talks about how he had struggled with his diet, and he was gluten intolerant. And so what he did was, I mean, at first nobody knew what it was. He actually even moved to a different country. He was like doing yoga and meditation. He was struggling with why his stomach was hurting, and then he found out it was his diet. And his parents owned a pizza parlor. So he had to change his entire diet. And he's like, he talks about these great recipes in that book. You know, it's you know, has a vegan component to it. It's gluten-free. And of course he eats meat, but.
Did he play tennis?
What?
He didn't play tennis, did he? Because if we own a pizza parlor, he'd have a good slice. But go ahead. I had to get that in there.
Yeah. Must.
No, but like, I love that. The concept of that, and what I use every day from there is that the fact that he couldn't even, it took him forever just to eat a piece of chocolate because he became so strict. And all of us at such a high level, we were functioning at such a high, I learned this from Rick as well, we're functioning at such a high level, eating the best food, you know, performing at our best level. But there's a chance where we're not 100% there. I felt like Djokovic was 100%. Even Rick, like, doesn't, if you give him even, he has to have green apples. If you give him red apples, he doesn't eat that. Like, I felt the same way with Djokovic. Like, he's not going to touch gluten. He won't even touch a piece of chocolate. Like, that type of discipline and strictness is very hard to achieve. And I think, like, you can get up to like 98%, but there's like a 2%. You know, to be amazing and awesome and number one. And I think that that part of the book is what I really personally took home. I was like, always remind myself, but you know, if you just take that little bit of, if you slip even once, even if it's like a little bit of a slip, it's a slip. So go for that 100%, you know? And I think we don't always do that. We're always like, well, we can make it up later. You know, like, oh yeah, you know, my daughter loves to cook, so she made something. I was like, I'll take a little bit of it, but now I don't even touch it because I know that that's not good for me. I really don't like it. So even if it's a little bit, I tend to stay away. So things like that, I just tend to be 100% at it rather than being at 98% because that makes you the best you can possibly be. So I hope that helps you. Yeah, it's just good. I mean, that's Rick though. You can see that he has that in you. I don't know about you. Like, how about your diet? Are you pretty disciplined on what you eat, or?
Yeah, I'm pretty disciplined. Like it comes with tennis and gym, right? So I do work out every day, and you have to eat somewhat properly. I do have like some cheat moments, you know, a glass of wine here and there, but I'm generally pretty disciplined. You know, it's like also the people you surround yourself with, which you've said in the many times in the podcast, which is very true. Like if you surround yourself with healthy people with healthy habits, then it's gonna be much easier for you to kind of just join that club or be a part of that. But if you have bad influence around you, you're just gonna float away a little bit towards that, even if you're Djokovic probably. So you need a pretty strong mind to if you're in a bad kind of like company to stay strict with yourself, I think.
Absolutely.
But let me just chime in, and this is a little bit off the question, but when Djokovic did the 60 Minutes interview, you know, he made it very clear, I wasn't born like this, okay? I had to work my butt off and change a lot, you know, mentally to become this. Okay. It's not a book that you read. Okay. It's not a vitamin you take. There's no magic pill. It's a process. As you know, as well as I do, when we first came on the tour, I mean, he was the last of those Mohicans, you know, better than Nadal, Djokovic. So, and he made it very clear. And there was a lot to that statement. He didn't say exactly what he's done other than, you know, he changed his breathing, had sinus surgery, changed his diet. There's a lot of things that he did that we don't even know about, but he made himself the way he is on top of the God-given gifts the rubber band man, the contortionist, high level technique, but it's a package. But he made it very clear that he made, and so when he got on that and he started seeing success, he just started adding layers, because there's no reason for him to even play, anymore if he didn't want to, because he just loves the competition. So I'm glad that he said it like that, because he made himself like that. And everybody else, forget sports, can do that in the game of life.
I love that statement, Rick, because when I read his book, and we incorporate that into our book, but he talks about how he was, when he would wake up in the morning, he had self-defeating thoughts. He had negative thoughts. And I was like, I thought, I had it. Like, we all don't realize we all are wired like that for whatever.
The same.
Yeah. And he meditates and watches them and gets rid of them. So I loved how he had to overcome that. And I felt like it connected all of us. And so, this book really does illustrate that, but it's incredible how much we have to actively get rid of it. Because once we get rid of that kind of pattern or negative thinking we have about ourselves, we can really live freely and, achieve our dreams without having like a negative thought make us paralyzed. It's incredible.
Yeah, and it's also a sign that you can change, which I think some people think, oh, well, he was born with this or she was born with that, and it's not. No, it's always a process for everyone, right? So you have to get there, and for some it might be an even more uncomfortable journey than others, but it's about taking it step by step and then see where you land, right? So it's not like you're just not born with a certain ability usually.
It's awareness. It really is.
Right? Absolutely. Listen, no matter what you do, everybody has ability, and everybody has talent. Now, there might be different levels. It's what you do with your ability, what you do with the talent. And you said it right. You got to take the stairs, not the escalator. It's a step-by-step process, okay? And there's going to be ups and downs, but as long as you don't quit, because that's when it's over, when you quit, okay, you'll get there. But with people, they don't think like that. I can't do it. Why me? That person can do it. No, there's people that ball boy for people right now, and they're going to be beating those people in 10 years. They have a dream and a hope, and you got to work for it. And it's a process. And this is what everybody has to understand. It doesn't happen overnight. You know what I'm saying? And you just got to get in a different mindset, a different routine, little by little. There'll be setbacks, but as long as you keep your foot on the accelerator, you'll arrive at your destination.
I love, what? I love talking about this with patients. I'll have patients that are all weak, like they're in wheelchairs. So I have a patient that's born with no muscle, literally no muscle. She can't swallow. She can hardly, talks a little bit. She can't lift her arms or legs, and she's in a wheelchair, but she smiles. And I was shocked that she had like a boyfriend. And on the weekends, her boyfriend, who's perfectly healthy, is pushing her in Walmart, on the aisles of Walmart, at our department store. And I was so impressed, because that mental strength and the outlook really got her what she wanted. And then I have people who are built perfectly, they look like models or whatever, and they cannot get any relationship because of their outlook and the way they're thinking. So it's incredible. You don't have to be born with it. And she's like the, perfect example, that patient I had. And I compare her, and just, that's what really motivated me for some of this book, like how our thoughts can switch so quickly and how easily manipulated they are and how powerful they are. So the more positive they are, they can get us to the top,
Yeah, and the book is something you can go back to every single day. Like when I said about YouTube or being around positive people, this is everything wrapped in one. That's the key. And you can go back to it, because listen, every day is not going to be rainbow, lollipop, and sunshine. It's going to be thunderstorm, craziness, okay? Take a deep breath, go back to the book, and immediately, bang, it's going to change your thought. Especially when you start reading some of the quotes and stuff like that. It changes your perspective. It changes your mindset. Hopefully the book, $1 Billion Mind, is going to become your new best friend.
Ooh.
That's a great one. That's a great one to end on, guys. I know I've taken some of your time here, but it's a great book. I've read it. I downloaded it on ebook, so I always have it on the phone. So in that case, I can always look back. Generally, I'm a pretty positive guy, so I just say amen to a lot of things that I read in that one. But I think a lot of people could really benefit from having a more positive mind diet and having a better habit every day too. And then well done on writing it. And if you write more books, you're always welcome to come and talk about them. And, you know, Rick, you're always here. Welcome to come and talk about tennis as well. So, you know where I am.
Got it. We are gonna do more books together.
Ideas, definitely. We'll do it. We have a lot.
And anytime you want me to help out, just give me a holler and we'll make it happen.
Awesome. Awesome, guys. Well, it was nice talking to you. Good luck on the book. It's a great book, so people will check it out. There will be links in the show notes so people can check it out, and on YouTube. So hopefully people will find a new path from the book, A $1 Billion Mind. All right. You have a great day. Really nice talking to you.
Nice talking to you.
All right. Good seeing you again.